Hey everybody, it's your buddy's pal Anthony, and I want to talk today about John Wick Chapter 4. I took myself to the theater to see it recently, finally. I know it's been out for a while. Better late than never, right Steve? Anyway, let's talk about it. Spoilers after the intro. Steve, hit it please. John Wick Chapter 4. This movie is long. It's 2 hours and 49 minutes. There's one post-credit scene. There is so much kung fu, gun fu, horse fu, all different sorts of fu are going on in this movie. No Foo Fighters, shockingly. That would be interesting if Dave Grohl just showed up. But he doesn't make an appearance, at least not that I noticed. Maybe he was in the background someplace. This movie pretty much picks up. It opens, you see John training. He's doing what all tough guys do and just punches a board with some rope wrapped around it so his hands bleed because, you want to risk fracturing your hands when you shoot and use them a lot to kill people. Anyway, we're off and running. John has a horseback gunfight / chase through the desert. He is looking for the elder. You find out he wants his wedding ring back. And this elder, when we finally meet him, is not the same as in John Wick 3. They don't really say why. They even mention in the moment, like, my predecessor is gone and even he couldn't help you, something like that. They don't say if John killed him. I'm assuming not, because for him to get to 2 elders very quickly after everything that happened, I don't know. But anyway, he got this elder. He just wants his wedding ring back. The elder informs him it's gone. He kills him anyway, naturally, because he's just out to kill as many members of the not necessarily the high table's hierarchy, but, like he said, he's going to kill them all. He's going to kill anybody who comes from him. He's done. He just wants out, but because of his actions, he can't get out. So we're off and running. Already a great action sequence. There's so many great action sequences in this movie. I can't do them all justice. I'm sorry. I'll try, but there's just so many, and a couple of them, believe it or not, were kind of excess to me. Like I said, this is a very long movie. There's a lot of story you got to get through. We're going to meet a couple of interesting characters along the way. And it just felt like, yes, it's an action franchise. Yes, this has become him basically being a superhero because he does so much stuff that he should be dead for, but he just shrugs it off and walks away. But I don't know. Like I said, I think we could have shortened the runtime, lost an action sequence, maybe 2, and it would have been more enjoyable of a movie, personally. So after the desert horseback fight, we're back in New York. Winston is now confronted with somebody from the high table called the Marquis, who wants him to show up to his office. This guy is all business. Right off the bat, Winston comes to his office. He has evacuated the Continental before he got there, which turned out to be a good move because the Marquis destroys it. He has a nice viewpoint of it from his office. The hotel blows up. Winston, looks on it like as if he just lost a child because that was his whole world. But the Marquis doesn't stop there. He also shoots Lance Reddick's character, Sharon. So Winston is now, for those keeping track, lost his hotel, lost his friend, and he's excommunicado. We jump over to Paris, where we meet a blind man named Kane, who we find out is another former assassin for the high table who had gotten out. He is watching a street performer who you find out is his daughter. And it seems like he probably got out on the condition that he stays away from his daughter, because when he finally goes before the Marquis and I'm out, the Marquis says, yes, but you got too close to her. So now you owe us a life. So it can be John Wick's or it can be your daughter's. So naturally he decides, well, John Wick has to die. We find ourselves at the Osaka Continental for the next big action sequence. Before this all kicks off, we meet a new character called Mr. Nobody, who's a tracker for the high table. And he's tracking John Wick, naturally. He's aided in his tracking by his canine companion. And then we are off for the next big action piece of this movie. The Marquis men show up. They believe John Wick's there because he's still friends with the manager. They were tipped off to this idea by Kane. And you find out John Wick is there. He only just arrived. The manager there, his daughter is the concierge. She's not happy about this. She doesn't want to invite, the high table to come and blow up everything that they've worked for. But this man places his friendship with John Wick above all that, and unfortunately, he's going to pay the price for it. Very quickly, the Marquis men show up. They know he's there. They want access to the whole Continental to search everything. The manager tries saying, oh yeah, sure, you can go ahead and do that, but you're gonna have to surrender your weapons. And then at that point, they deconsecrate the hotel on the spot. And this leads us to our next big action piece where they're fighting throughout the entire hotel. Again, I can't do it justice. It's really amazing. Eventually you get to see Kane in action, and you see him using all these little tricks because he is blind. He puts these motion sensitive doorbell chimes in different spots when he's fighting. He's fighting in the kitchen at a certain point, and he's crouched down low, things like that. He has them at different heights and different places, and then they goes off, and because he's mapped it in his head, he's just, he's still just as precise with a gun and his cane sword. Just still an amazing fighter. So we have yet another epic gun battle throughout the entire Continental. Everybody's getting involved in this. They take the whole ballistic clothing to a whole nother level. There's some sumo wrestlers whose kimonos are also bulletproof, which is just interesting to see in general. They really rely on this stuff. At least he's being smart. John's being smart. He's still doing the trick where he covers his head with it, because, not that you know it, because he takes so much damage in other ways, but presumably a headshot will stop him. But, he gets multiple times throughout this movie, he's gonna get hit with cars. He gets flung off like the second story of a dance club like he did in the first one. Only this time he's back up and right back into a fight. In the first one, if you remember, he gets flipped off the second floor at the Red Circle, and he has to kind of limp off and go heel and whatnot. This time, no, barely even registers an ow out of him, and he's just up and back on his mission. The Osaka fight wraps up with a duel between Kane and Koji, the manager of the Continental in Osaka, who, everybody's old friends. They knew John. They were working together. I'm assuming that the manager was also an assassin with John before he got promoted. Since Halle Berry's was the same thing, I'm assuming you start as an assassin and work your way up if you want to, which is great. Yay, job opportunity. They have their last stand, their last duel. Kane comes out on top, and Koji is dying in his daughter's arms. As he dies, she goes to grab his blade, and Kane tells her, no, live, remember your father. And as he's walking away, he tells her that he'll be waiting for her. She encounters John Wick one more time, and she tells him that either he's going to kill Kane or she's going to do it, and then she's off the train that they met on, and John actually finds himself back in New York meeting with Winston because he got word to him through Lawrence Fishburne's character, the King of the Bowery, that he wanted to meet, and now Winston informs him of a way out of this life for John. He can challenge the Marquis to a duel, and if he wins, he's out, but like with everything else, if he loses, he's dead. So, but of course, it's not that easy. John needs to be a member of a family that has a seat at the table. He's excommunicado. He punched his ticket. He doesn't have that, so he has to go to Russia and make amends with his family and get them to sponsor him again. You find out when you get there that the old head of the family was killed because the Marquis, I guess, anticipated that this was going to happen, so he killed the old head of the family off screen. And the new head of the family is obviously pissed off at John for this happening, all the pain and suffering that's inflicted on them because of John. And by the way, they inform him of all this while they have him strung up in like some sort of old torture device. He's got a noose around his neck, and there's a guy cranking a huge wheel, tightening it up as the new head of the family is informing John of all this. And then ultimately, he's able to talk his way into saying, listen, I'll kill the guy who killed, I don't even remember the guy's name. I'll kill the guy who killed the old head of the family. And then after that, you let me back in and challenge the Marquis, name me as your representative, and I'll end this for everybody. And then this takes us to another action piece, and this is again where I start to say, if they edited this out, if they just didn't do another action piece, or if they just did it much shorter, it would have been fine. You still would have gotten another action piece, but it just didn't need to be as long as it did, because again, now John and the Tracker and Kane are all at this other Russian mobster's place of business, and they're having a long conversation and this and that. If it ended in that room that they're having this conversation in, fine, but it doesn't. They have another huge fight going all through the dance club that they're working out of, which in the moment you're like, okay, cool, it's action, it's great, it draws you in, but just critically after the fact, we probably didn't need that whole thing at all. It could have ended in the back room, something, short, sweet, and to the point, but it didn't. And we get another long action piece, and we also get the reemergence of Tank Wick, because he just can't be stopped. He's taken so much punishment this entire time. He's, like I said before, he's falling off upper levels. He's getting chucked through. I think he got thrown through concrete column or something along those lines, or maybe not through it, but just into it with enough force. The guy, by the way, I forget his name, but the Russian who killed the head of the old family, he's a very big guy. He's basically the kingpin. So John Wick fights the kingpin because he's a fat guy, but he's all, he has an asthma pump, but he's all muscle and all power. He's kicking John Wick's ass. He's still doing high karate kicks, getting him in the face. And yeah, so John Wick fought the kingpin. That happened. But naturally, ultimately, John Wick wins the day. He brings back proof that he murdered the killer of the head of the family. He's welcomed back into the fold. We have a moment of him having to burn his arm to signify that he's a member of the family again. Okay, fine. And now the challenge has been issued, and they eventually go to talk terms. They eventually come to decide that they're going to have a pistol duel at sunrise in Paris. I cannot pronounce. I tried many times. There's many outtakes of me trying to pronounce, and I just can't do it. I'm sorry. Maybe Steve can insert just a text bubble saying the name of the church, but they're having a duel at sunrise at this church in Paris. If either person doesn't show, they're going to be hunted down and killed immediately. There's also added stakes to this. Winston worked in the contract that, along with John getting his freedom from the high table, if he wins, that Winston will also get his hotel rebuilt at no expense to him, have his excommunicado rescinded, and he's reinstated as the manager of the New York Continental. If the Marquis wins, obviously, John and Winston are both going to be dead. And another wrinkle that the Marquis threw in on this, because, naturally, you haven't really seen him do anything this whole movie. Like, he has aspirations and ambitions and things like that, but he hasn't gotten his hands dirty. He names Kane to be his surrogate in the duel. So actually, the final duel is going to be between John and Kane, 30 paces to start. So this was all being discussed the night before the duel. They didn't issue any sort of a stay on the bounty, so John's going to have to avoid assassins all night long and make it to sunrise at the church. We are reunited with the King of the Bowery. He came over to Paris to give John a new suit to get through the night with. They drop him off. He emerges onto the street, and he's going to start making his way to the church. And naturally, everybody just starts coming out of the woodwork. We have another massive action piece all throughout the city. This is when Tank Wick really shines, because at one point, there's a giant roundabout that they have a gun battle and a car battle, and it's insane. I can't even try to describe it, but it's completely insane. He gets hit numerous times with cars, and it just goes to show you that those suits are really great, and he's, like I keep saying, he's Tank Wick. You can't stop him, you can't kill him. Insane. One of the second to last, I guess, action piece, they are fighting through an empty house in Paris. And that's actually really cool, because instead of just following behind or in front of the action, when you walk in, the camera actually pans to an overhead view, and you're seeing kind of like if you're looking down, I guess, at like a maze, like, rat in a maze, you're watching John and all the assassins weave through the house and everything that's going on. It was just a really cool angle, and actually kind of refreshing, because, you've seen all these other angles through all these other fights for now 4 movies almost, and, not to say they're getting boring, but you're getting kind of familiar with it. Oh, this is when they're going to do a shot like this and that, and now they put you in an overhead view spot, and it was just really cool to see. So bravo on introducing something new. So John's going through the house. Mr. Nobody, the tracker with the dog, has come back again, and he's finally getting his hands dirty. He's been waiting this whole time, by the way, for the money to hit the right amount. This way he'd actually kill John, because he had a certain dollar amount that he wanted to retire at, type of thing. He actually explicitly says this to the Marquis, and he's fucking with the Marquis the entire time too, because the Marquis calls him and tells him, he's like, all right, come on, take the shot, blah blah blah, and he, yep, I'll take it for 30, and the Marquis starts to yell at him, and he hangs up on him. Eventually, the Marquis does hit a number that the tracker wants, so now it's the tracker versus John Wick. They have their own little fight, and his dog is in the building, by the way, attacking the Marquis' men, because he's trying to keep the Marquis' men away from John, because he wants to kill John, so the dog's doing all that stuff. The main henchman for the Marquis shows up. He's going to take out John. The dog attacks him. His owner, the tracker, is down, by the way, so he can't defend the dog because the dog gets knocked away, and the henchman's going to kill the dog and then kill John Wick. But he clearly hasn't been paying attention because that's just a terrible idea in a John Wick movie. Anyway, John shoots the henchman, doesn't kill him, and the dog survives. And it's at this point the tracker turns his mind around. He's like, oh, wow, he saved my dog. He doesn't say it, but all of a sudden it goes from he's going to try to kill him to, all right, forget it, because John gets up and leaves, and we're at the final piece, the final action piece before the duel. Before John can get to the church, he has to climb these 222 steps. Again, I'm not going to even try to say the name, sorry. But he's trying to climb these steps, and he's confronted with the last group of assassins in the city, has an epic fight going up all these stairs. And, it's funny because, again, like, he kind of looks up like, oh, shit. But it's like he's been going through so much stuff. He's just powered through everything. So the fact that he even paused to look up at the steps as if he was going to have trouble climbing the stairs, that was like, why even include that? Because he's shrugged everything off. Again, hit with cars, fallen from 2 stories high. When he escaped the house just now, he actually did that again. He jumped out of a window, crashed onto the roof. I think it was a Volkswagen bus that was sitting out in front. Dents the hell out of that, and still rolls off and does his little John Wick, Keanu Reeves shuffle as he runs off and finds himself at the steps. So he makes his way through naturally, gets all the way to the top when the Marquis men are up there again. They attack him, throw him down the stairs, and he goes down all 222 steps again. And at this point, I think I said out loud, oh, Jesus, we have to do this again. They introduced the time element all of a sudden, because at the bottom, Kane's there. Before Kane appears, John checks his watch. Then Kane appears. He's like, oh, so how much time do we have left? And he's like, about 2 minutes. So now Kane and John Wick fight their way up the stairs through the Marquis men and to get to the church on time. Again, the first battle up the stairs, that was fine. Having to immediately redo it with Kane just to show that Kane and him are still friends, you didn't need to do that. That's just me. But the first time through was great. The second time through was great, just repetitive. Of course, they get through. We're now at the site of the duel. They start off at 30 paces. They have 3 shots. If they don't kill on each shot, they have to take 10 steps closer to one another until somebody is dead. For shots at 30 and 20 paces, both John and Kane hit each other, although not critically. For the final shot, John goes down, and the Marquis stops Kane, says he wants to take the honor. He's going to take the killing shot himself. Before he hands over the pistol, Kane, so everybody else can hear, Kane has him say, we're good, I'm even, my daughter is safe, I'm out, we're all good, right? And he's like, yep, fine, you're all good. He turns around, he starts walking up to John all nice and slow. He's gonna take the shot. Winston lets out a laugh, and I think he says something like, you idiot, he didn't fire his last shot. And then he looks over at John, who pops him right in the head. And that's it. John's now secured his freedom. He's gotten Winston his life back. At this point, I was expecting for them to do a quick dissolve and find them back in New York, find John back at his rebuilt house, have John Leguizamo, who I'm sad to say was not in this movie at all, have him drive up his Mustang, and then return the dog, and John gets his happily ever after. I really thought they were going to do that, but what actually does happen after the duel is done and everybody goes to leave, John takes a couple of steps down the church, sits down, watches the sunrise, and then in a wide shot, he slumps over to the side. So they're leading you to believe that he's dead. I've read articles where Lionsgate's already saying that they want John Wick 5, so they're going to bring him back. However, the director and Keanu Reeves have apparently both said, no, we're happy with where it ended, and this and that. They weren't spoiling anything. It's also like, you've made it very clear that he's dead. Winston takes the body home, buries him next to his wife. It's a whole thing. Lawrence Fishburne has Keanu's dog, so he's going to take care of the dog now. But all in all, leave him dead. It was a good way to end the movie. Like I said, I expected them to win. Kudos for them to actually, quote unquote, killing the main character off and ending the franchise. It definitely ends it on a high note, if it did, because I can't imagine how they're going to top this action in another movie. I know I complained, I said, oh, it's too many. It is too many. From a critical standpoint, you could have left out the part where he goes after the Russian boss who killed his Russian boss for the revenge to get back into the family thing. They could have just done it, let him back in. You know, you could have cut out a couple things here and there, made it a little bit of a shorter movie. It still would have been action-packed, and I wouldn't have felt like it was just one piece too many. And all in all, because of the length, I feel it could have been edited a little bit better, I'm gonna have to give John Wick an 8 out of 10. And now I wanna know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments, did you like the movie? Did you like my review? Do you have any of my concerns were your concerns? Did I miss a lot of stuff? I totally missed a lot of stuff. It's almost a 3-hour long movie. Also, while you're doing me favors, please, links down below, join the Nerd Affiliated Army, hit the store, pick up some sweet, sweet merch for yourself, for your friends, for your loved ones. We have something for everybody. And if you haven't done so, jump over to Instagram too. Give us a follow. I'm Anthony the Rambling Nerd. Hey Archer, Nerd Affiliated, Book of Archer. And last but certainly not least, Aaron Waller, the hardest working man on YouTube. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Steve, play me out, please.